All right. As chair of the planning board, in accordance with Governor Sununu's emergency order number 12, this board is authorized to meet electronically. While there is no physical location for this meeting, we are using the Zoom platform for this electronic meeting. Information about how to access the meeting is provided on the Town of Plymouth website. If anyone has a problem connecting to this meeting, please call 603-254-6098 for assistance. In the event the public is unable to access the meeting, we will adjourn the meeting and have it rescheduled at that time. Please note this relates only to the public at large, not an individual. If the bulk of viewers have no problem accessing, then connectivity problems would be on the part of that individual. This is akin to a member of the public traveling to a meeting and having a transportation issue. I'm not sure if I was supposed to read that whole aside, but I did. We will then move on to a roll call of the members. I'm here, Rebecca Hansen. Steve Whitman.
Here.
Bill Bolton.
Here.
And we don't have Bonnie on the phone. And, oh, what about Phil? What's he missing?
You want me to text him?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think Bonnie's here. Can we unmute her so I can? Okay. Bonnie, I'm just taking the roll. Are you here?
Can you hear me? I'm on the phone.
I can hear you.
You
We got you, Bonnie.
I hear you, Bonnie.
okay?
Glad you're here.
Okay, good.
Is someone both listening to on the phone and on somewhere else? I keep hearing myself echoing throughout this.
I just turned mine down.
It was before you, Bonnie, so I'm not going to blame you for it.
Okay.
I can tolerate it. It's just a little weird to hear my own voice coming echoing back through. Okay, so hopefully we'll have Phil join us in a little bit. But let's just go right into we don't have a public hearing tonight, do we?
We do not.
Okay.
We say a non-binding conceptual, but
Okay.
no public hearing.
Okay. So I'm going to just move the agenda around a little bit. So let's just let Lisa Donner's class present to us first, so they don't have to. You're welcome to stay for the entire meeting, but please don't feel like you have to after you present. So Lisa, does everyone need to be unmuted, or can people unmute themselves as they need to present?
Yeah, so I think there's going to be two primary speakers, and then the rest of the class can be available to answer questions and fill in any areas that maybe need more explanation. But I think they should be able to unmute themselves. Kenzie and Julia are going to be the ones that are doing the primary presentation. And I'm not sure which one of them is going to be sharing their screen.
I'll be sharing my screen.
So
Can everyone else just put themselves on mute while they're presenting, and maybe that will, I just muted myself, eliminate the feedback that I'm getting? Does that work?
Yeah, I think somehow it's on your computer that you're getting feedback on your computer. It's only when you talk.
Ryan, can you, yeah, okay, now try.
Okay, so just as an introduction, I'd like to say that this is the students who are in the Environmental Science and Policy Capstone Seminar course as part of the Environmental Science and Policy program. And each year we challenge these students to come up with a project that engages a community need and does outreach on that, on the solutions that they come up with. So this year the challenge was to look at climate adaptations. So I think that the presentation actually goes into this, so I'm not going to talk any more about this, but this is the culminating aspect of a semester's worth of research by the entire team of students. And we hope that Plymouth finds some good benefit from it. So I'm going to turn it over now to Kenzie and Julia.
Thank you. Lisa just did a really nice job introducing the project, so we're just going to hop right into it.
Trying to share the screen right now. Oh, it says host disabled attendee screen sharing. Is there a way to enable screen sharing on the host's end?
Yes. There you go. Did you get that? Okay,
Yeah.
there you go.
There we go.
So we're just going to go through some key terms first, and then we're going to dive into Plymouth's natural hazards, and then we'll talk about how climate change is going to affect Plymouth's hazards, and then we will introduce the project, provide an overview, the motivation for the project, and then the significance, and then we've also made some time in case you guys have questions.
Yeah, so throughout this presentation, we'll definitely be noting some of these key terms, and we just want to make sure that everyone's on the same page. The first one is permeable, and this word means allowing liquids or gases to pass through a material surface, also referred to as porous or pervious. And then impermeable is the exact opposite, which is not allowing fluid or gases to pass through, also noted as impervious or imporous. Runoff is mentioned a number of times throughout this presentation. It's the flow of water that occurs when excess storm water flow like over the Earth's surface. Permeable pavement is a porous surface which catches precipitation and allows water to secrete through and infiltrate through the soil.
So I think this doesn't come as a surprise, but Plymouth's primary natural hazard is flooding. And this is because Plymouth is surrounded by higher elevations. We're surrounded by mountains and hills. And then we also sit in very close proximity to the Pavement River. And so because of these features, we are just really susceptible to flooding events, especially after significant precipitation events. And then also excess runoff. Now, this was not mentioned as a hazard per se in the mitigation plan, but I did notice that the mitigation plan does make a point that since 2011, it's in Plymouth's plan to just keep improving stormwater runoff, just through mitigation implementations. So that is what we're trying to gear this project towards.
So a lot of these hazards are increasing in size, intensity, and frequency, and we can attribute that to climate change, of course. In recent years, they've worsened, and they'll continue to do so as climate change worsens. Runoff has become more problematic due to the increased size of rainwater, flooding. Of course, there's flooding due to other circumstances, obviously with the Pavement River being in very close proximity to us. But as far as we know, through the EPA and many studies, floods will continue to intensify in our region.
So I found this, this diagram on the EPA's website. Floods have become larger in streams and rivers across the Northeast in particular. And those increases are just symbolized by the blue triangles that are pointing upwards on the map. And then extreme floods are becoming more frequent across the Northeast. So not only are they growing larger in size, but they're increasing in frequency. And it says, significant decrease and insignificant decrease insignificant increase and significant increase. As you can see, New Hampshire has an area that has experienced significant increases in their flood sizes and frequency. And obviously, although some of these might be deemed as insignificant, they were still noteworthy. And just the general trend is that the Northeast is experiencing increases in their flooding events.
Yep, just to continue off that, it obviously brings societal and infrastructural risks associated with this excess runoff. A list of these are damage to public and private property, which I'm sure we've seen throughout our years living or residing in Plymouth. Increased costs of wastewater management, threats to public health and safety, eroded stream banks, more river flooding, widened stream channels, and a better chance of the water becoming polluted as runoff increases volume into the river directly. So future climate change will exacerbate all of these threats.
So it's important that Plymouth begins adapting to the future climate changes. It's inevitable, and unfortunately, like we've mentioned, they're just going to continue to worsen as climate change worsens. This is why we are proposing some green infrastructure to be implemented in downtown Plymouth. The areas that are highlighted in yellow on this map show our projected project area. And it will include both sides of Main Street, beginning at the Rotary and ending at the intersection of Main Street, Highland Street, and Green Street. And this will, like I said, it will include both sides of the road. And it will also include the little walkway that intersects the town common.
Yep, so it'll be mainly sidewalks is our focus, which is a small enough area we thought would be manageable for a first step at moving towards adding some more of these permeable surfaces. So our project includes removal of current concrete sidewalks across downtown and replacing them with a permeable alternative that collects and filters runoff streaming from obviously the surrounding uphill areas. We do recognize that this requires a lot of adding of layers under the original sediment, and we'll need to implement clean materials. In some cases, we'll have to add water drains and in order to directly move some excess water away from buildings. But prior to construction, this project will require drain studies and further mapping, which we weren't able to kind of dig deeper into of this semester, which we were hoping on doing to get a little more of that real life experience. But from home, we noted the important steps that'll have to be taken in order to start and kick off this project. And
we'd also just like to note that Plymouth's Water and Sewage Department will be conducting a project in the near future. And this was brought to our attention. And, we recognize that the project that we are proposing is going to be, it's going to be destructive. It's going to interrupt the traffic flow downtown. It's going to interrupt, pedestrians walking and visiting the stores. But we would like this project to be conducted simultaneously with the project that Plymouth's Water and Sewage Department will be conducting. We just believe that this will allow for less disruption. The project that Plymouth's Water and Sewage Department is going to conduct entails some of the things that we would have to entail, or that we would have to do if we were to conduct this project. So we believe that if we were to conduct these simultaneously, they'd be manageable and they'd be done, easily.
Yep, they totally complement each other in this way, and we're hoping it'll bring some beautification and a little upgrade to our sidewalk system downtown. So these are the materials that we've done the most research on. This by no means is what we would exactly choose for our selected area, but these are ones that we found had good outcomes. So those are bound recycled glass permeable pavement, which is a great alternative to asphalt or concrete because it's using recycled materials. And again, the main point of this permeable pavement is that water can filter through it. Another one we have here is True Grid Pro Plus permeable pavement and Aqualine permeable pavement. So again, we use that pavement term very loosely. It's not pavement, it's just the term that's used to describe an alternative.
So the bound recycled glass, as Julia mentioned, it's consistent of a mixture of post-consumer glass, which is ground into smaller stones, and then they also do include stones, and then a binding agent, which the binding agent is eco-friendly. They've tested that and it does no additional harm to the environment. And this is manufactured and distributed by Filter Pave, which is located in Missouri. Now I understand that that's very far away from Plymouth, but I mean, if someone in Missouri is producing it, I bet we could absolutely find a company closer to home that could also manufacture and distribute this too. The Pro Plus pavement consists of small sized gravel that is laid in between 2 foot by 2 foot square cells made of post-consumer recycled high density polyethylene. And this type of pavement is 100% permeable, and it remains maintenance free and highly permeable for up to 20 years. So again, even this pavement option is using post-consumer products, which helps reduce waste. And then the Aqualine pavement is an environmental series of permeable interlocking concrete pavement. And it's manufactured and distributed by Belgard. This is also, actually, I do believe this one was in New England. So that's a little bit closer to home, a little bit more manageable. And this consists of concrete, stones, and various sizes of gravel underneath to filter the water back into the ground. Sometimes you might see this on patio sets and stuff like that. So these are all very good alternatives, and they also offer that beautification factor that Plymouth's downtown area could definitely use.
So this is just a visual on the layers that was mentioned earlier. We do recognize that it is a lot of additional substrate and porous material, but I think it's worth it for the outcome that this pavement allows. Yeah.
So this project is a potential solution to mitigating
She said this might happen. Her Wi-Fi has been a little iffy.
Was it not going?
Oh,
Hear me now?
can hear you.
Okay. Oh, yep. Kicked off.
We can definitely hear you though.
Julia, why don't you do this slide?
Sure. So a little bit of our motivation behind this project is definitely the hazard mitigation plan that we were looking into pretty extensively. We went through the whole plan and noticed some parts of it that mention mitigation towards excess water, which is a big problem in Plymouth. And since 2011, it's been deemed necessary to continue implementing stormwater mitigation throughout the town. So that's why we chose a project like this. To continue that, this project serves as a response to future climate changes, and climate change will result in increase of extreme weather events, including drought, storms, and flooding. Precipitation events will increase in frequency and intensity. This is just to make note of everything we've mentioned prior. yeah, the significance again is climate change is our biggest threat at this time. Flooding is huge in Plymouth. Permeable surfaces reduce runoff volume by allowing precipitation to infiltrate into the ground. It reestablishes a greater hydraulic balance. It prevents large, rapid pulses from entering things like our stormwater management systems, which has been noted to cause problems in these systems with wastewater and stuff like that. These pavements filter stormwater, and it reduces pollution concentrations entering the stream. There's seasonal benefits included reduced need for salt treatment, surprisingly, in winter, and because of its ability to retain heat, ice will not form as easily.
We would just like to thank you guys for allowing us to come on here and even just considering this project. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Great job, Julia and Mackenzie. Presented that extremely well.
Sorry that my Wi-Fi cut out, guys.
Whoever's sharing their screen, would you mind unsharing so
Yeah.
we can get the grid of faces up here?
Mm-hmm. Not sure how to do that. One sec. Stop sharing.
All right, so any questions from the board?
I have some.
I bet you do.
Probably no surprise to some of them. And I thought maybe if I could start, Rebecca, it might give people a chance to think of additional questions they have or things I didn't think of. So first of all, Lisa and everyone in the class, thank you so much. Like, this is such a great project. And these are exactly the types of conversations that we as a planning board have been having and that we want to be having. And we want to figure out how to do some of these things through the project that you mentioned and any other initiatives that come along. So every time you help us with something like this, I think we get a little closer to the goal. So some of what I'm going to share with you would just be questions, things that you may have thought of or may have ruled out. And that's just to make sure that we as a planning board are contributing to your learning experience, and just making sure that you have a realistic kind of appearance before a municipal board, because nothing's more petrifying than that first time, and it kind of sticks with you. So I guess my biggest thing is I liked the overall approach, but I wondered about the focus on sidewalks, because all of our sidewalks are elevated in the project area, and so much of our stormwater is actually on roofs and on the road. That's my first question.
So we had, we didn't want to overwhelm the town of Plymouth with a big project. And you're right, we didn't really consider that the sidewalks are elevated. But we figured that starting off with roads would be a really big step for Plymouth. And we just didn't want to overwhelm the town with that type of project. So that's initially why we went with sidewalks, but yes, you do absolutely make a good point about their elevation.
I guess my other related question would just be, and it might have been beyond the scope of what you could do this semester, but did you talk about integrating planting areas or the existing street trees to kind of help with some of the systems that you showed for a new sidewalk? Or was it just pavement that you looked at for this class?
Initially, we did look into rain gardens, but we were worried that that might not be a big enough approach. It might not tackle enough. But I mean, if you were to combine that with permeable sidewalks or permeable roadways, that would definitely be an even greater step. But yes, we did talk about rain gardens. We just we were feeling a little bit more ambitious than that, I guess you could say.
I guess my last point, and I'm getting a text from Phil. Phil's asking me to let you know that he made a comment in the chat, Rebecca, just that he's not enabling, he doesn't have a mic, I believe, right now. So
I see that, Phil. Phil, if you have questions, then put them in the chat and we can address them.
Yeah. I guess the last piece was I liked how you broke it down to 3 different products, and a couple of those were products I hadn't seen before, so it was good to learn about them. So that was also helpful. The second product, that kind of gravel pave type product where the stones are inside, is there anything that covers the top of that to keep those stones in place, or are those stones loose inside those cells? And the reason I ask is because it's on a state route. I believe, Brian, we have to follow like federal highway standards for materials, and we have to think about people, walking across that with different levels of ability to traverse the sidewalk or in different types of footwear.
Nick, do you want to?
Yeah. So the True Grid one, I believe you're talking about, they don't typically put anything over the stones that are in that casing. Some of the types have like different grass tops that can grow through it, or there's also like little caps that can go in the grids for things like parking spaces and stuff. But as far as anything covering the stones themselves, they don't usually put anything on that type. No.
Okay. I think that answered Phil's question too. He also had a question about kind of ADA compliance. So I will yield now. Thank you all.
Didn't he also have a question about any equipment that might need to be purchased to maintain it? That's what I'm thinking about. Like, you have to vacuum it periodically.
When we were, constructing the proposal and a lot of the project plan, we also had to think about after the project was implemented, if it was approved, the maintenance keep up, especially with a few of the pavements that we proposed, some of our options, including the bound recycled glass and also Aqualine. Since there are spaces in between the grids of those pavements, we did talk about power washing, as there can be blockages in the way that water infiltrates those pavements. So we would, we included in the proposal that power washing materials and machinery would be beneficial for maintenance and upkeep.
Some pavement options also.
It's usually pretty the same with like plowing wise and sand, and then sand and salt it's going to reduce because it's not as slippery of a surface. There's a little more texture to it. So that's one reduction we would have on a positive side in the winter.
So I have to admit that I would prefer, in fact, excuse me for interrupting, Rebecca, but I'd prefer like pavers. But the towns already kind of made like a statement they want to get away from pavers, and they were kind of focusing on the the pavers that were inserted in the crosswalks. That were, there's a lot of like vehicular issues with that, and a lot of chips from plows, and there's a real maintenance issue with the the pavers. So we were taking them out of the crosswalks because of they're annoying and hard to maintain. So hopefully on a sidewalk, something like pavers might be, I guess, more easy to maintain, I would think. But
yeah, I also think that other options besides pavers, you might not run into that issue as much. I know the recycled glass, it's so small. Those pieces are so small, and they're bound really tightly with that binding agent. And so areas that have kind of implemented that, they haven't experienced as much damage to the walkways or the sidewalks, as you mentioned. So I think you might be able to find some pavement options that will be able to kind of withstand those types of maintenance needs a little bit better than others.
If only we could use our crushed glass, because we got tons of it.
We did just get a question from somebody, I think it's from Jules, that what's the binding material for the bound recycled glass, because we may get a glass crusher. I have a couple questions that I want to throw in there. And then Bill had a question about the ADA compliance question, which I don't know if that specifically was answered. But first I'm going to ask my question. My question is about, first question is about cost. Did you get into the cost of different materials, for looking at the materials that you were suggesting, versus what would be more traditional in a sidewalk or in paving. And what is the long-term cost-benefit analysis of using, and how much are we saving in the long run by protecting our infrastructure, protecting human safety, maintaining water quality? How does that balance out with the cost of, I'm assuming it's more expensive to put in the permeable pavement. So how do those two things balance out?
So yes, unfortunately, it is a little bit more expensive to implement a permeable alternative to pavement or concrete. Specifically, I know that the recycled glass is a little bit more expensive than even, let's say, the Aqualine or the pavers. Unfortunately, we did not really go into a cost-benefit analysis, but yeah, I mean, I can't. Oh, man. Does anybody else want to? Yeah, no.
Well, I know that one of the I don't remember which one it was. I think it was TrueGrid, the Pro Plus. One of the things that we did include with the materials is that it lasts for a specifically long period of time, which would be 20 years, opposed to, I think that that's a benefit in our cost. I know we can't really match that with concrete, but that's something that we did want to include, that specifically that option of pavement would be the most bang for our buck and would suffice for a longer time with increased maintenance, which is also another cost. But yeah, it's not going to be the super cheap alternative. But
my other question was about, I'm wondering if you saw any other communities in New Hampshire or neighboring states that are successfully implementing projects, municipal projects with permeable pavement. I think we definitely look to our neighbors and see how they're doing and seeing the successes that they're seeing or failures that they're seeing with especially new materials that aren't being widely used. So I'm just wondering if you came across any other of our neighbors that are doing projects with this stuff.
So yes, there was, I had looked into one study that was done on the coast of New Hampshire. I can't remember the area right now, but it was on the coast. And they had seen very good success with, they had used, I think it was just permeable pavement, like a paver type of thing. And they saw pretty good success. One of their concerns was how it would respond to a winter climate, because obviously we have some pretty harsh winters. And they experienced the decrease for the need of salt and sand because the water is infiltrating the surface, so it's not puddling up on top of the surface. It's not creating the icy patches. So there was less of a need for winter maintenance, the usual things that we do now. And it also, depending on the material that you use, they will expand and contract very nicely. So you won't have as many ruts, or you won't have as many holes in the surface during the winter like we already experience with normal pavement. So yes, there have been some areas throughout New Hampshire that have looked into these types of pavements with the concern in mind of how does this respond in a winter climate, because that is a really important thing to take into consideration with this.
I also think it's important to note, just real quick, that we found more information on permeable paved like parking lots and larger areas of pavement. We struggled a little bit to find examples of sidewalks. Again, like Mackenzie said, we wanted to start with, our initial idea was to start with a smaller, area of surface, but we had trouble finding some examples. That doesn't mean that it's impossible to implement, but we did have some trouble finding some examples of sidewalks. However, we did find a lot of examples of East Coast, New England, permeable pavement examples implemented already.
I'm looking at the chat now. I think in response to Phil's question about the surfaces being ADA compliant, Brian replied that yes, they don't call for a paved surface. So that should answer that. Other questions from the board? Yeah, Bill.
So, so you know, we're trying to like separate our stormwater from our wastewater, and that's what you know, water and sewers are in the process of doing. And it's unfortunate that you weren't considering like a rain garden or something like that, because at some point we're going to have to divert or at least put that water someplace. And ultimately it's going to be probably a little stream that's kind of south of town, and then it's going to go in the Pemmy, ultimately. But I approached actually DES to find out about like a supersized rain garden that we could actually use a rain garden to deal with the stormwater, and they said nah, that hasn't been done. But something like that, or at least a few rain gardens which might be able to accommodate some of that water. That's what I was kind of actually thinking in the back of my mind. But pervious pavements, also a nice project too. So you did well. But
I guess I could also add that there were some studies or projects that had been implemented where the water would infiltrate through the surface, and then it would end up in like collection tanks, I guess you could call them, and then the town would utilize that water for different uses, whether it was drinking water, to clean it and drink it, or for things like you said, reapplying it to other areas of town or other areas of the environment. So, I mean, you could easily combine both. You would just have to make sure that whatever water is draining through the surface, that it is being redirected to a collection tank of some sort.
And did you consider like the whole package as far as who we might approach to find for funding sources, or?
So we did look into a couple of funding options. Unfortunately, we did not include them in our presentation, but they were included in the document that we wrote up. Okay. I cannot remember the exact name of it, but it was like a national grant program that they will implement, or they'll distribute funds based on projects such as this. And they had actually distributed funds to numerous other areas that were looking to start applying permeable surfaces across town.
Okay. Very good.
Other questions from the board? Bonnie?
No, any question I had, it seemed to be answered.
All right.
Did you hear me?
Yes. Oh, yes. Thank you, Bonnie. And thank you to this class for presenting. We really appreciate helping us keep the conversation about stormwater going. It's something we talk about a lot as a board, and to have some of the legwork being taken off our shoulders is certainly appreciated. So thanks for digging into this. And I imagine most of you guys are done with school, so congratulations and nice work. So you're not among the many students I saw walking around in caps and gowns this afternoon on campus. So
thank you.
And thanks to the planning board for giving us this time. And we hope that you can find some benefit from that proposal, because that does go into some of the details that we weren't able to put into the presentation.
Can we get, would you mind sending the report and maybe a PDF of the presentation again, so we can all look at that as a board, and just as resources for us into the future?
Yes, I will resend that.
Yeah, thank you. All right.
Well, thank you,
everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. So next up on the agenda is let's review the minutes. We tabled the minutes on April 2nd. I think because we didn't have a copy of them, and I sent around a copy we've got mid-afternoon today. Did everyone get a chance to take a look at those? Hang on a sec, I'm just pulling
I
them up.
did.
Okay, awesome. So that's one I did. So that's two of us. I just want to pull. I'm going to pull up the minutes too, just to make sure we've got a quorum of the people who are there.
I'm just having to pull them up.
Okay. And,
I have them ready.
okay, awesome. All right. So on those minutes, we had me, Bonnie, Phil, Steve, Carl. So I think we've got and Marianne was there too. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 of us that are, we've got a quorum for this, I guess is what I'm trying to say. All right. Any questions, comments, edits on the minutes from the 2nd of April?
I found none.
You're good, Steve?
Yep.
And Bill, you weren't there? You were there as a guest. I did read the minutes and saw you were there, but not.
That's true. I can't vote though.
And Phil says he has the minutes. Everything keeps jumping around on me. Okay. Okay, so Phil has made a motion to approve the minutes as written. Thank you, Phil.
I'll second.
Bonnie, second. That's an action from our people without their faces in the grid, which is excellent. Okay, so unless anyone has any other comments, I will read the roll. Steve.
Aye.
Bill. Sorry, that was a trick question. You can just say you abstain.
Abstain.
Okay. Phil. Aye. He says that. Can everyone else see that? I feel like I'm puppeting Phil a little bit. Everyone can see that in the chat. Okay. And Bonnie.
Aye.
I am aye as well. Okay. Moving on to the minutes from our last meeting, the 16th of April. We've had a couple more days to review those. Any other comments, edits, corrections for those minutes?
I only found one,
Okay.
and that was right in the beginning, where it says there's a line that says something with pursuant to the governor's emergency order. There's a 3 in between the V and the E, and that just has to be taken out.
Yep. Okay. All right. Other comments or edits to the minutes from the 16th?
No.
Okay.
Nope.
All right. Maybe a motion.
I'd make a motion to approve these minutes.
I'll second.
Excellent. Okay. And I will read the roll. Steve.
Aye.
Bill.
Abstain.
Thank you. I'm just going through the roll.
Yep.
Bill. And Bonnie.
Aye.
Sorry, Phil said aye. See that in the chat? I'm reading it and not saying that. And you're a very fast typer, Phil. And I say aye as well. Okay, so minutes are approved. Let's go on to the non-binding overview of a proposed low-impact development on Tenny Mountain Highway. Applicant wishes to formally present at the June 18th planning board meeting.
Madam Chair, do you have the letter from Mr. Carter? I sent it an email today.
Yep, did everyone get that?
Yes.
Okay. Since he's here, not here to present for himself, he sent this in. Basically, he just wants to be vetted that everything is okay at this point. He sent along the site plan, which I passed along to you guys. I know it's clunky when it comes that way. But basically, he's talking about 3 phases. The first is an access road to the trout pond, which is located adjacent to the river. And I asked him today if that wasn't, in fact, in the floodway, and he said yes, it was. But that was just purely for a conceptual. He'd be willing to move it further out of the floodwaters. My concern was that unless he built quite a berm, all those fish would end up in Ashland. So, you know, that was part of it. And of course, he would have to get probably, depending on the number of yards of dirt he's moving, in AOT. But it's a fairly light development at this point. It seems like everything is clustered towards the road. And the only actual stuff he had proposed at this time would probably be a small unit. And he didn't indicate on here whether it was the interior roads are paved or not. But there are walkways. I mean, you can see for yourself. It's pretty nice from what he laid out. But you know, I guess it speaks for itself if you guys want to, you know, look at it.
Yeah. So, is he going to be watching this? Is that he's trying to hear a little more about what he wants from us?
No, basically he wanted to know if there were any tweaks to it that you folks would like before he makes the formal presentation.
Okay. I have a few things, if folks don't mind if I just, okay, so Phil's asking a question. What map and lot is the conceptual consultation relative to? I can answer that.
I didn't see a site plan in any of those emails.
I can pull it up, share the screen. I'm just going to get the, I don't know what I have the parcel number, Phil, if you want it. It's 213-028.
It abuts the Mountain Village Charter School that we looked at last time.
Okay. Is it the parcel behind the barn? Behind Mr. Therian's to the right?
Would you guys like me to share my screen?
Even further to the left. It's more towards the Rumney side or the westerly side.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I've got the tax map pulled up if you want me to share the screen, and I can also show the site plan if that helps. Folks want me to do that?
Please.
Okay. All right, so here's the tax map, here's the parcel. So this is the, right here, number 29, is that right? That's the charter school?
That's the charter school.
This is the abutter that we heard from.
Yes, I believe that's Mrs. Zabin.
And here's Yetton Road. And then as far as the site plan, it's a pretty large scale. So I can zoom out all the way, but it's really hard to see. But here's the proposed campground. And then the trout pond is up here.
How far from the river is the trout pond border?
There's a tree line existing that is 50 feet from the river.
Yeah. So we're going to have to talk about the environmentally sensitive zone on this one. I'm not sure how a trout pond, I mean, to me that seems like, I am no hydrologist, but that seems like a pretty vulnerable place in the riverbank for blowouts. And so to dig down to 8 feet below the water table, I'm not sure what permits are needed, anything like that, but I would be concerned that that's not going to, it's kind of halfway altering the riverbed.
Well, the Comprehensive Shoreline Protection Act, or whatever they're calling it these days, has a 50-foot no-build zone. The town of Plymouth has a 75-foot no-build zone, but it's not a structure per definition. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it would have to, I imagine you could use something like that down there, but he recognizes the vulnerability of it as well. And I think he really would like to relocate it elsewhere.
There's no room on that plot, though, to put it elsewhere.
Yeah, it would require him to purchase some abutting lands if possible.
So yeah, obviously a wetland permit, I would think there. And is that big enough for an alteration of terrain? It's half an acre?
Well, the whole thing being combined, I would think
Okay.
would require it, because I imagine there'll be some dirt work closer to the highway.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just moving this thing around. If someone sees a chat come in from Phil, let me know, because I can't quite see them right now.
Yeah, he just
Go ahead.
made a comment about the inside of meanders tending to be depositional as far as that riverbank.
Yeah. Okay. What else do we want to see about this?
Can you keep scrolling down? I guess I want to see more about this campground and proximity to Tenny Mountain Highway.
Yeah, and so this says excavation area for compensation of fill above floodplain. So there's going to be another compensation pit. All right. So 15-foot buffer, it says. Now, Brian, are these going to be, what's going to be here? Are these going to be park model type campground units, or are these going to be fully mobile motorhomes?
I believe they're, according to the document he sent, and that would be phase 3.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be 25 golden age campsites. I don't know what that means. 2,500 square feet to 5,000 square feet, leased on a 6-month basis. So it wouldn't be Plymouth Sands. This would be transitional camping.
Okay, so we don't know if we don't know if these are going to be moved off site, or these are not. Sounds like they're not going to be park models that are just like in between a campground and a trailer park.
Correct. I mean, it may have a bunch of motorhomes in it,
Mm-hmm.
but the lease is only valid from May through October.
Okay, so they have to be moved off site.
Correct.
And then are those parking spots up the main drive coming in and golf along the southern border of the open area?
Let's see. I'm not sure I understand your question, Steve.
The
Are
main
these parking lots here, parking spaces, and this is the golf? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
I can zoom in or try to zoom in.
It says 23 Ts, so I'm guessing that's what it means. I just wanted to clarify for anyone watching too.
This says 23 as well. But a walkway, top of slope.
Oh, the T's are located along the highway, right there, Rebecca.
Yep. Okay. Ooh, there's a deceleration lane. What's that?
Right turn lane.
Okay.
Fancy.
Wow, be the first place on Tenny Mountain Highway to get one of those.
Yes. Well, no, actually, they put one in at Riverside Landing.
That's great. Yeah.
Finally.
Okay.
As you can see, he also took into consideration the river walk.
Yep.
And he did say that he would put aside land for a sidewalk, a 10-foot sidewalk along the front of his property.
He's heard me like sidewalks.
Yeah.
That's big. Okay, so I mean, I imagine there'll be a lot more detail. I would think they would come in a full proposal.
Yes, I mean, as far as the ins and outs and the actual phasing, other than the bare bones information he gave us,
Mhm.
I believe that was the case. I mean, this is truly conceptual, compared to one that it's almost ready to rock and roll, if you know what I mean. He's more than
Right.
willing to make any changes, that are the board would require to get this going.
Okay. Does everyone need me to keep sharing my screen? Or are we good?
Okay.
I'm good.
All right. All right. So he wants just, I'm not sure what other information we can give aside from, you know, following the site plan reg. And yeah, I guess I'd be curious how we calculate impervious surface as well.
Yes.
Considering the transitional nature of what's going to be there.
I believe, and I've never been a motorhomer, but more often than not, they're graveled surfaces with hookups. I don't believe he's intending to pave the parking or the camping areas themselves, but perhaps just the road.
Do we count gravel driveways as impervious surface?
That's a tough one, Madam Chair.
We should.
Well, yeah, but I mean, if we looked at the last presentation when they talked about what impermeable was, gravel met the definition. So I've long wrestled with this. Yes, you know, depending on the gravel, it could be damn near impermeable. But by its nature, it's absorbent, you know, unless it's like ledge pack that's been compacted. And I think that that is a decision for the board to make.
Yeah. Steve, do you have an opinion on gravel driveways as impervious surfaces?
It'd be good to find a definition we could hang our hat on, but
Yeah.
I think in most cases they're virtually impermeable. The exception of what the student showed was because it was kind of loosely packed within those cells. It still allowed some permeability, but when you have to like, I mean, a lot of lawns are actually impermeable because they're so compacted.
Yeah. So I don't know if you heard that my question is how are we calculating, I mean, I think it's a big lot, so it might not be an issue, but how are we calculating impervious surface on this development? If some of the structures are I mean, I guess if they're parked on pavement or whatever, that changes it. But you know, the structures are not permanent, but they're there for 6 months out of the year.
Okay, so he's going to have to answer the impermeable surface question, is what you would like him to do. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I think isn't he required to do that in our site plan reg?
Yeah. Yes, he would anyway, but that was lacking on the plan, as you know.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to make sure. I think it's actually a fairly large development. The impact of while it looks somewhat sparse, the concentrated development right along the river, I actually think it's fairly significant. And I think it's the closest thing we've seen in a while that's been this immediate to the river. So I would expect a lot of detail in a plan. Stormwater management. I don't know if I saw septic on there. I see a leach area.
Yeah, they did put a well radius in, so I imagine that there is also a septic going in.
Yeah. But you know, the phased nature of this makes, you know, how much detail is necessary at this stage. But I think that seeing a long range plan for all these pieces, I think would be important because I do find this to be fairly significant. So.
Rebecca, I think from my memory of the image, the third phase, I think Brian said, was where the campsites were. They're fairly close to the road. And so thank you, Brian.
You're welcome, Steve.
Both from a visual screening perspective, but also from like a safety perspective. If you have people hanging out that close, that we should really think about a buffer for their privacy as well. But yeah, just that much activity that close to the highway seems like worth a second look.
Okay.
Frisbees.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think that maybe we have enough information for a tentative approval. I mean, for us to look at phase 1, but I don't think there's any way we could approve phase 2 and phase 3 without a ton more detail. So,
Yes, absolutely.
yeah.
You know, and he may be willing to do it in a 3-pronged approach, you know, as rather than phasing, if you know what I mean. So he would come back for each successive phase rather than have them all approved up ahead.
Yeah, I just don't see enough information on.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Madam Chair. So we're looking at impervious surfaces percentages. You know, we do need the question answered about what's underneath the campers. Proximity to the river and stormwater management. Stormwater management would be the only key thing there, as long as none of that, well, there is an equipment shed that he's showing there. That has to be 75 feet from the baker according to Plymouth regs. So that might have to be moved. That's in the northwest corner of the plat by the campers.
And how close are these? It's hard to tell with the handwritten plans. So how close they are to the campsites are to the river.
Okay, he shows a 20-foot wide river walk, which is on the top of the bank. So just by scaling in my brain, it looks like another 40 or 50 feet from the top of the bank to the river. But I guess we'll need more details and better scaling on that too.
Yeah, I'd like to know what permits he needs and progress towards those permits. As are just, you know, obviously going to be part of the any type of approval would have that as a boilerplate condition, but I'd just like to know the progress of those or status of those.
Yes. You know, and I'm not even sure they just applied for them at this point or even had an engineer do the calculations for it.
That's why I'd like to make sure we just mention the word permit. So, and just mention that that's part of it. Bonnie, do you have something to say?
Yeah, I just wondered, I know that it's pretty hard to do much now, but is there any chance of a site walk before this goes too far? Because I can't visualize anything unless I'm really there and I see what it really is.
Certainly.
Okay. That makes me happy.
Yeah, I think maybe once we get a complete application, maybe is that a time to talk about site walk, or do we want to do a preemptive?
It's your call. I do believe he's going forward with this, so it probably wouldn't hurt for us to go interim. If he's going to present in the middle of next month, we should probably just go out there and take a quick peek, at least at the roadside development of it.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I'd just like to see that there's an application in hand before we make a commitment to do that. So I guess I just see a lot of work left to do on this, and you know, 6 weeks goes by quickly. So.
Yeah, he's very aware of the deadline for next month, and that's coming up. I think it's the 26th this month, so it's actually quite a ways ahead.
I'd be amenable to to using our work session to do a site walk if we all feel comfortable with a distance masked site walk. What do folks think about that?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. All right. So yeah.
I'm good with it.
Okay.
It looks like Phil is too.
Yep. Oh, there. Yep. There's Phil. All right. Is that helpful,
okay,
Brian?
I think I got enough homework for him at this point.
Okay.
And he'll be happy to have it, I'm sure. But I'll broach the idea of the site walk too and tell him that, you know, the sooner he gets the application to us, the sooner we can go out and view it.
Yeah.
And also, I'll hammer him on the details on that.
Yeah. And do we have parking for one car for everybody at the site, or do we need to go in stages? So, because I don't think we're going to be getting in the car and carpooling out there together. So.
There's probably enough shoulder room there that we can pull off. And there may even be, you know, like an extended pad in. I'm not really too familiar with that property. I know where it is, but, you know, not the whole.
I'm looking at the aerial and I wonder if you just park across the street at the Commerce Park. Some risk in crossing, but
Yeah,
But
good idea.
it's good to see the implications for our decisions as planning board members. So if we have to cross that street, that's just,
Right.
All
looks
right.
like Phil had the same idea.
Oh, yeah. You didn't just read that and steal his idea, Steve?
No, but he will. He has every right to accuse me of that.
Yeah. All right. Anything else on this non-binding? Phil says he was typing as Steve was speaking.
Thanks.
Yep. All right. Any other comments on this this non-binding preliminary discussion?
Nope.
Okay. Does everyone have a little more in them to move on to the master plan?
A little bit.
Yeah. Some of us, I imagine, yeah, I mean, I'm sitting in front of this computer talking at it for a good portion of my day. So, all right. So Steve, you want to, I know there's not a huge progress report, but site plan regs, just a quick update on that.
Yeah, actually, some of the people that just presented to us just gave me their site plan regs 21 days late today.
Oh.
Yeah. So yeah, I told Rebecca I really haven't had the bandwidth to work on it, and I've been kind of waiting for some of these additional pieces to come in, because I do think that some of what they've researched will present some things for us to discuss and some good examples at least, and I want to use that work to at least help us. But I need, I don't know how many hours, I need a chunk of hours to go through what they have and just kind of retain the pieces that would be good for us to be having a discussion about. And kind of pull out the stuff that either seems unrelated or runs counter to what the master plan says. And I just, until the semester ends and nothing else has seemed to slow down, I just can't tell you when that will be. But I have it on my radar as a to-do. Definitely.
Okay. All right. Thank you for continuing to wrangle the students in doing that. 21 days late, huh?
It's been, I mean, in their defense, it's been a really unusual second half of the semester.
Really?
Some of them had some really challenging situations.
Yeah.
Access to technology, things they have to balance at home. So we try to be flexible.
Yep, that's good. All right, so the other thing on our docket today was to go over some of the zone sheets that Steve's class was working on. And I'm also not, I feel like I have little bandwidth to be driving this process forward right now. It's, I just got enough projects that I'm driving forward in other aspects of my life that, so I haven't given this my full attention either. So I'm wondering what would be the best move. Maybe I get the screen back up. I'm trying to pull up some of these zoning sheets. What is our best move? Did everyone else get a chance to look through the zoning sheets for this?
I have a proposal. I'm happy to wait and listen to questions and comments, but I have a proposal if it helps.
If it helps fill the space for it, yeah, I'd be psyched to hear it.
I think we've been working on this on and off for a year. It takes a long time. Zoning, I think, is probably the hardest thing a planning board can work on, especially like on top of or when we have time. And so I think it often ends up at the end of a meeting when we're all kind of least ready to engage in difficult topics. And so it also is getting pushed down the road a little bit.
Yep.
Is there a way that a smaller number of us could work on this and meet the RSAs and come back with a more refined package for the planning board? I guess that's my proposal. And I'm happy to be one of those people, but I feel like I need an hour or so with just a couple of you to kind of hash out what's here that is not helpful, and kind of simplify the 3 sheets and come up with a sound presentation that's not my presentation, but it's kind of like a subcommittee presentation back to the planning board. So that's
Yeah, so Bill said that we could convene a zoning subcommittee that would report back to the board. So, yeah. Our bylaws now state that 3 of us makes a quorum, which makes it challenging because then we'd have to host it as a meeting. But, Brian?
I hate to bring this up, but you can always schedule another work session if you felt like it, just for that. And that way there would be no distractions or anything, and the full board could meet on it. It's just an idea.
Yeah. I mean, I keep all my Thursday nights free, so yeah. So I wonder if that's to sort of do a combination of the 2 things where not everyone has to be there, but because of our bylaws, which I'm not eager to change right now because we're still a little light as far as members go. So I wonder if we could have the subcommittee meet. It might have to be a notice meeting. But
if you just call it a work session and it's working on that, you know, no decisions would be made. Obviously, it would take, you know, a business meeting for the board to confirm or make any votes on it. You know, that would have to be a publicly, well, you know, the same as the meetings there are now.
Yeah.
You know, but if it's in a work session context, I mean, there's nothing would come out of it until ultimately the public hearings, you know, if we went that route. So it's entirely your call. I hate to, you know, spend other people's time. I know how that goes. So
I'd like to be mindful of, and then Brian, your time and Jules' time, realizing, you know, this is added work for you too, and this is something that, you know, we could convene on our own as well, as long as it's noticed the right way.
right.
You know, we can run the Zoom stuff on our own, as long as we've got a phone number where people can contact us if they are having trouble. So if that takes some of the pressure off of staff.
If that were the case, I'm happy to host a Zoom session, provide the Zoom details to Brian and Jules ahead so it can be shared in whatever format. I think it's a good idea to us, because I can record it as well and provide the recording to the town as a record. But I think if we can have these conversations with a smaller group of us and really dig into it, but be transparent so people can go back and look at what we actually said, that can only help move this forward. Or at least inform people enough that they can then ask, you know, more informed questions to help us refine this and make it better.
Yeah.
And it sounds
I
like
think that's great.
I think he wants to chair the committee.
Phil does? Is that what it says there?
Hey, he just volunteered.
He is a fast typer.
That was fast.
All right. I think a group of 3 could be more productive. I think a group of 2 maybe is just too binary, and it's, I mean, you know, I think balance of 3 is nice, and slimming it down to a smaller number I think is good too, because I think that just, instead of trying to spend a lot of time making sure everybody's participating in the conversation, we can maybe be a little more productive. I'm happy to participate if I'm not having to wrangle the meeting and lead it.
I can't volunteer. I can volunteer Mary Ann. How about that?
She's not here, yeah.
Well, it sounds like if you and Phil and I all stepped up to be the subcommittee, then all we can do is refine this and bring it back to the full board, hopefully in June. Okay. If everyone else is okay with that.
Yes.
I'm fine with it.
Okay.
You know, you'd have to run it like a regular work session meeting with minutes. I mean, it's still a public meeting, right? So even though it's a subcommittee. But other than that, I mean, that's just, you know, administration work. And you know, it seems like to me that nobody's getting a break here. You know, if you're not going to, you know, you're busy and you're running out of bandwidth, and suddenly, you know, the 3 principals on the board are, you know, tied up in the zoning look. But I understand that because we don't have a whole lot of people. But certainly, that would be a meeting that I'd probably watch just, to stay in the loop on it. And that would be available to any other board member or the public as well.
I mean, I think our minutes can reflect just pretty bare bones, and we're used to very detailed minutes.
Right.
But I think we can I can pare them down enough, and I'd be happy to just take some quick notes that
Sure.
reflect
Who's there, what the topic was, and what your findings were, and then move on.
Yeah.
If we do it as a subcommittee meeting, does it have to be at the same time we normally meet, or could it be at another time and still be?
It can be at another time. You are required to meet twice a month, and you hit those marks. There's nothing that says you can't meet 30 days a month at a duly noticed meeting.
Sounds great.
I'm not recommending it.
I'm happy to do it on a Thursday night if that's easier for Rebecca and Phil, but I'm open to other ideas too.
I can be flexible anytime, because usually I'm just right here. So yeah.
Do we have to decide now, or can we follow up with Phil in a phone call so make it a little easier for him?
Let's follow up. What's the
Email.
notice period? How much time do we need to give the public for a meeting?
It's real short. It's like 24 hours.
Okay.
48, yeah.
So, okay.
And that would just be a matter of putting it up at the dump, the library, and in town hall. The usual postings. There's no newspaper requirements or any of that.
Transfer station.
I'm sorry, Bill. The
Recycling
recycling facility.
Steve, do you want me to set up the date and time on our Zoom or yours?
I'm happy to do it either way. Yeah, I just have to decide between the three of us when would be a good time, and then be in touch with you.
All right, so we can figure that out offline, as long as we give you. I need more than 24-hour notice for a meeting anyway. So, and just a heads up, I think Zoom is going to required meeting passwords coming up in 2 days. So just a heads up that we need to make sure we're giving people meeting passwords as well.
Yes, thanks for mentioning that. Saw that. Trying to get more secure.
I guess just to clarify our mission, so that if any other board members aren't, if it doesn't make sense to you or you think we're missing something before the three of us split off and work on this, the 3 sheets that Rebecca circulated for tonight were the existing agricultural zone with a bunch of potential new name options.
Right.
With a potential increase in lot size and a change in the uses, like kind of a simplification of the uses. A change or update of the highway commercial to a gateway district, and actually some sections of the agricultural zone to a gateway district along the Route 3, 3A, and then an update of the ICD, the industrial commercial district, to some kind of a community commercial district or regional commercial district, but to take that ICD district and the sections that are now agricultural district but have quite a bit of commercial development and kind of unify that district and actually maybe incentivize more mixed use or higher density development with good design standards. To do one of these districts without the other seemed like it would be confusing, I think. If we all of a sudden change the lot size of the ag zone and that changes a lot of things along 3 and 3A, we might get some pushback. But if we look at the gateway zones and the ag zone together and show that we're not removing development possibilities, we're trying to shift it to where it's most appropriate and where the infrastructure exists. That was kind of the rationale that I recall from talking about just these 3 for now.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we'll work on a meeting time coming up with the idea of bringing this back to the board in a month. Does that sound about right? So we have nothing on the books for our meeting 2 weeks from now. So
oh yes, correct.
So I would propose maybe we could spend that time as a committee to prepare that stuff if we don't have other stuff to deal with master plan wise.
I wasn't going to be able to attend that meeting on the 21st.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm actually Zooming elsewhere for the client.
So I would propose that maybe we just cancel that meeting, since a couple of us will be working elsewhere or working together on other stuff. Does that work for everybody?
Yeah.
What meeting are you going to cancel?
The next meeting, which was supposed to be a public hearing, but we have no applications.
May 21st.
Okay, I'm just.
Third Thursday meeting.
Yeah. Yeah, the date is, May 21st.
Oh, May 21st. You're going to cancel it?
I'm asking if we would be amenable to canceling it.
Well, it's all right with me.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. All right. So I say, since we're going to be working on that and on stuff, 3 of us will be working on stuff on the side anyway. Let's just cancel the meeting and bring stuff back to the board on June 4th. Right?
Yep, June 4th.
Right.
That's what I got. June 4th would be the next one.
Okay. And that's when you're going to report back from the subcommittee as well, right, Madam Chair?
As of now, that's the plan.
Okay, great.
I think that's good. It keeps us on our game.
Yeah.
Focused.
Yeah, I think I would do better from just a couple more frequent meetings, pulse of them, and then getting through it. I think part of the problem is we end up going 2 weeks to 4 weeks to 5 weeks without getting into the stuff. So I forget what we're doing half the time. So. And I think any other members of the board that aren't on the committee, please give us your feedback on any of the zone sheets. So.
Okay.
And to keep me from, there's no one here from the public, right? No. So no comments from the public. Anything else from anybody?
There was no mail,
Okay.
no announcements. Everything's been canceled. So no, I have nothing from the admin side.
I guess I appreciate that Bonnie's still with us, so I don't want to forget the fact that Bonnie would like to be released from service at some point. So using this opportunity is to say I think we are still recruiting for more planning board members. Rebecca, is that true?
Yeah, yeah, we are.
Anyone that's watching and thought this looked like a really good time and they want now's a good time to help Bonnie.
And an immediate seat on a subcommittee.
Ooh.
And thanks to both Bonnie and Phil. It's not easy to participate when you're not able to be a talking head on this thing. So thanks for being able to jump in and participate. So.
You're welcome.
All right, and I can keep babbling until someone makes a very special motion. Let's see. Phil did it. Phil made a move to adjourn. I'm going to read the roll now. Steve.
Aye.
Bill.
Aye.
Bill.
Uh-oh. There you
So
go.
thank you for reading his comments, and aye. Bonnie.
Aye.
And me, aye.